So we are here with Brother Jahi Muhammad. Jahi Muhammad is here. Excuse me. Jahi Muhammad is here with us to have a powerful, enlightening discussion around our dear sister, Dr. Ava Muhammad. It is interesting that this was actually the date that we had scheduled for her to speak on the Pan African Leadership Center, and she has since made her transition from this space, but her works continue. So we wanted to just simply dedicate this conversation to honoring the love, the light, and the law of this divine woman of God. We want to recognize Brother Jahid. Thank you, brother, for coming. He serves as on many spaces of where it deals with the community and being community oriented. Whereas he has worked with Hosea, Feed the Hungry, Fulton County's Call to Manhood, United Way's volunteer involvement, the winning circle for the Cab County in Atlanta, in the Georgia area. He is his company Follow Worldwide in training the seminars. He served as a co-executive producer, and his focus and thrust is about re-educate, empowerment of a population to excel. He has hosted on his particular broadcast, his show. He's hosted Professor Griff of Public Enemy, Minister Akbar Muhammad, Dr. Umar Johnson, Dr. Chike Akua, and many other luminaries. This brother is one who was a mover and a shaker. We met some time ago in I'm saying Memphis, but it wasn't Memphis. It was Holly Springs, Mississippi, at the Black Student Leadership Conference there, and it was from there we've been connected over the years. So he's had me on his show on Mind and Money Matters, and I've been honored to be able to be a part of that. And so this brother is one with the Nation of Islam Mosque, number 15, and he is doing phenomenal things in the world. So, brother, thank you for being here and having this discussion about our dear sister, Dr. Ava Muhammad.
All praise is due to the Most High. Thank you, Dr. Mwata, for the invite. And may I start out as we are taught by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. I bear witness there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. And again, I greet you and your entire listening audience, those who are watching it live and those who will watch it. I would greet you with the greeting words of peace and paradise that we say in our original language. Assalamu alaikum, or some may say shalom alaikum, or some may say peace. Or if you live in Southwest Atlanta like I do, I say what up, shouty. It all means the same.
Walaikum salam. It do what it do. I wanted to open up right with this idea of this woman being the light, the love of God, and the honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan described her as the light in his discussion about her. What can you say about it? Because I know 2 years ago she was at the mosque in Mosque 15, I believe, doing a discussion with you about womanhood and woman being the second essence or expression of God, or second to God. So what can you say about her that we want to open up with in this discussion?
Oh, thank you, number one, again for the invite to discuss such a phenomenal person. I had the honor and privilege of knowing student minister Dr. Ava Muhammad. At one point, here in Atlanta, we were like neighbors. We were kind of neighbors. She lived in my neighborhood. It was funny because she was the minister of the mosque and the region, which historically speaking, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan appointed Minister Ava the minister of Mosque Muhammad Mosque number 15 here in Atlanta, Georgia, in 1998, and that was a historic event. She was the first female to head a mosque and a region in the modern history of Islam. So that was a very uh, historical and groundbreaking maneuver. And then to come to find out a few months later, she and her husband of 33 years, Brother Darius Muhammad, actually lived in the neighborhood that I lived in. So, I'm looking out the window and I see, hey, I recognize them. I see them walking down the street during their early morning walk. So she was actually an absolutely phenomenal sister. And definitely, I want to get into my personal experiences with her, as well as the view that I have of her from the world perspective. But I must encourage all of those that are listening, you must go to digital.finalcall.com and subscribe and see the latest issue of the Final Call newspaper. Or no matter where you are on the planet, this newspaper is available. And she graces the cover. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan says she's not just a star, she is a star of God. And there's an extensive write up on her in this issue of the Final Call newspaper that you see here with that beautiful smile that she had, just that radiance and presence that she had that attracted a whole lot of people, not just Muslims. She had a very strong impact on whomever it was whose presence that she was in, following in the footsteps of her teacher, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, being able to connect on a spiritual, mental level with others in order to help. What part of the assignment is to raise the dead. So I must say that. Oh, if you go to digital.finalcall.com, you can get the newspaper there. And as I said, in every city in America, in the Caribbean, in Europe, we have mosque in London, in Paris, in Tokyo, just about almost anywhere on the planet, you'll be able to find this newspaper, physical copy if that's what you need, or you can go to digital.finalcall.com. I first heard of Dr. Ava, Dr. Muwata. I first heard of her when I came into the ranks of the Nation of Islam 1992, and she was a powerful student minister. She would travel around the country teaching on behalf of the ministry class of the Nation of Islam, and she just her skill level, the knowledge that she possessed. She's an attorney, and you can find again all of this out in the article. But Dr. Ava is an attorney. Uh, she went to school in Washington D.C., got a law degree, and became passed the bar in New York State, in like I think the first or second time taking the test, and went to work for the New York City Attorney General's office as a prosecutor. Then later on, she started a few years later. She and some other brothers and sisters started a law firm as defending the people. So that was her beginning. That was her beginning. Uh, uh, and that she kept that up as well. That's what she did. Defend the righteous. Yes, sir.
That's powerful because when something you said earlier, right? You said that she attracted people. I have to admit that she was my NOI crush, right? When I first started was to look at the NOI, I said, this woman right here is beautiful.
Yes, sir.
And
Yes,
then
sir.
the articulation, right, that comes from her mouth, the utterance, speaks
Right.
to, as the Honorable Louis Farrakhan called her a star, and I talked about the issue of the light. He says that the star becomes extinguished, but the presence of can still be felt, and that's what I mean by this everlasting light. She was light, man. When she came into a
Absolutely.
space, she brought enlightenment, she brought power, and this is important. This is one of the reasons why we wanted her to be a part of this conversation of the Pan African Leadership Centers, because of the amount of power that she brought, but at the same time she remained very human, right? You could touch her, you could speak with her, you
Yes.
could engage with her. So it wasn't as if she was standoffish. It's like she was just simply a divine presence of God, and she continues to speak to us today through all that she's written in all of her various speeches. And so that is on point. She wrote a book called Weapons of Self-Destruction, a guidebook for women in the war against negative internal forces. released in 2005, right? Weapons of Self-Destruction. She was talking about the issue of the negative internal force. And so she wrote the book, she says, because she felt that we'd arrived at this position where there's the deliberate process to destroy women, and that women are doing most of it themselves. And she talked about the issue of we have to move beyond being token representation of
Right.
individuals in business, in science, in education, and move to the task of being women, sacred women. So you've you heard her talk about these things.
Oh,
Share more about that.
absolutely,
And
absolutely. So, when you just mentioned that, Doc, what I was reminded of, I remember listening to a lecture. I gotta set this up because it's my favorite. I talk about this in almost every seminar that I do, and when I'm doing consultation with my clients, whether it's a professional consultation and or personal consultation. So around 1990, no, around, it was 1998. I had left a mosque meeting. I bought a tape from of Dr. Ava's. It was called "The Black Woman: Yesterday, Today, and the Future." So when I left the mosque meeting, I was on my way home to the motherland, where I'm originally from, Mississippi, right? On my way back to Jackson, where we're having all the water issues there right now. So I pray if those who are listening or have family in the area, like I do, that they overcome this travesty again. It's a recurring thing. But I'm leaving Atlanta on my way to Jackson, Mississippi to see my mom, and I got this tape in the this shows you how far it's a cassette. And I know there may be some young people listening to you under
I have no
18.
idea.
They have no idea what that is, but it's a little bitty um, recording thing that we would put into another machine, and we would listen to lectures and music that way. So I stick the cassette in. I'm listening to it, and she's talking about laws of nature. Now that was laws of not nature, laws of the universe, laws of the universe. They are applicable no matter who enacts it. So one of the laws that she talks about was the law of commitment. Now I'm riding along. I'm doing about 85, 90 on the highway, right? I'm riding along, and when she gets to the law of commitment, she says the law of commitment states that when you and I make a complete decision, the people and the situations necessary to bring that decision into fruition come into our lives. Now, when she said that, I began to think, let me say, she goes on and she says, now you may say, I made a decision one time and it did not come about. She says, no, you didn't make a decision. No, I didn't make a decision. We thought we did, but we entertained doubt. Brother, I grew up in a Black Baptist church, right? So I had what we call a Holy Ghost moment. I had to pull over to the side of the road because every situation of my life up until that point flashed before my eyes, right? I'm thinking, when I made that decision, Doc, it did come about. When I had that mindset, okay, I don't, the obstacles are there. I don't know how I'm gonna overcome those obstacles, but I'm going to do X, Y, Z. I will be in X, in such and such a place at the time. All this came flash before my life. That law is absolutely correct. So she goes on to say, now you may say I made a decision once, but it didn't come about because she said you and I didn't because we entertained doubt. So over the years, subsequently, I started thinking about that. We, not that you and I won't have doubt, but when you entertain someone, when you come over to my house, Doc, or I come over to your house, what's the first thing you do after you tell me to take my shoes off at the door? You invite me in, right? Hey, have a seat. Can I get you something to drink? Can I get you something to eat? Are you comfortable? So we entertain someone or something, we feed it, we give it attention, we give it energy. So the point was not to give that doubt energy. I'm like, oh my God. So that was literally life transforming for me. So every situation, now I'm conscious of this. And this is about listening to what she introduced. And I told on several occasions that piece right there just literally transformed my whole thinking process. And I was able, as I said, blessed and honored to and you alluded to it a few moments ago, she was very approachable. I mean, it actually blew my mind the first time I reached out to her. This was years ago. Now, mind you, she is the regional minister in the Nation of Islam, which is an awesome responsibility, carrying the weight of the word of God to resurrect the people and to be the administrator as well over 24 mosques in 4 states, at that time. So it is absolutely awesome responsibility. But I reach out to her again. I don't know if he may be listening, but our good friend Dr. Chika Kur was writing his book on Kwanzaa, and he wanted a perspective from a Muslim perspective. So I reached out to Minister Ava, and her office responded, and she had one of her assistants make that essay or that piece for Dr. Chika's book. I think it was Kwanzaa Reawakening in that book. So I'm like, wow, that was phenomenal for me and for him. And then on subsequent occasions, I have ideas to do community programs, community events. Reach out to Dr. Ava. Guess what? She answered the phone. She returned the phone call, and she showed up. Like absolutely phenomenal. So we had the opportunity over the years to work together and I always told her how much I appreciated that because we see people in a certain light. I'm not. It's just like the celebrities that we see. Your favorite celebrity, you able to contact them, you're able to connect with them, and they respond to you. It's absolutely great. So she was a guest on our platform, Mind and Money Matters live show for the 5.5 years that we did that show. She was a guest on there every year. She came willingly. As a matter of fact, I would see her at Savior's Day events, and we would greet each other, greet her family, and she was like, "Okay, let me know when the show is. I'm ready to come on." I said, "Yes, ma'am. All praise is due to Allah. I'll let you know." So, in addition to being in this lofty position, because she after she was the minister, the regional minister for the Nation of Islam, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan appointed her as his spokesperson, national spokesperson for the Nation of Islam and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And she also served on the Sharia Council of the Nation of Islam. That's the governing body, one of 13 people that are handpicked by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan to carry on the day-to-day operations of resurrecting the people, resurrecting humanity.
And that was her message, right? It was always about elevation of the people. It was
That's,
always about
that's the name
elevation,
of so yeah, Elevated Places. It's the name of her podcast. Absolutely, yes,
right? And
sir.
so, you talked about, her getting a law degree from Georgetown University in 1975, and she, at some point, she lost the capacity, or it was taken away from her to practice law, but she came back and did pass the New York bar, and became a part of that particular law operation that you mentioned, the law firm, and the idea of elevated places. Right, it was always about elevating consciousness, lifting people up. You mentioned that there's powerful points. The first woman to head a mosque in the world.
That's right.
That's a global phenomenon, right? The idea that this person was able to do this, and then you mentioned her responsibility over a region.
Yes,
This
sir.
is powerful. This sister was indeed powerful, and she was elevating us on multiple levels, and she continues to do so in authoritative utterance. Right? She talked about the significance and the relevance of the lecture that she did with you all, the one that I was looking at recently in here in the Atlanta area, where she talks about the they say that the Muslims are sexist, but there's no place more sexist than the United States of America, right? And how she talks about that. I mean, she was on point
Yes,
and was
sir.
an advocate for separating from this
Yes,
hellacious
sir.
system and establishing ourselves. Uh,
Project Separation. Yes, sir.
so share that, because I mean that was a powerful voice, and especially for a woman to say such. And we know that our women always have spoken out, right, in this country when we talk about the issue of being traumatized. If we talk about Ida B. Wells, if we deal with Harriet Tubman, right, Mary McLeod Bethune, we've had the women to really take a significant and serious stance. But that's another voice altogether when it says
Yes.
we must acknowledge the fact first that this is one of the most sexist or the most sexist place in the world.
Right.
And they always try to go around telling others how to behave. And then secondly, strive for separation so that you can experience elevation. Speak on that.
Absolutely. So, for those who may not be familiar with the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, on the back of every Final Call newspaper, and in this particular issue, it's on page 39. It's what the Muslims want and what the Muslims believe. So I want to read it so I do it justice and um, not uh, miss a word. But the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad give us the blueprint, the Muslim program, what the Muslims want. Point number 4 under what the Muslims want. We want our people in America whose parents or grandparents were descendants from slaves to be allowed to establish a separate state or territory of their own, either on this continent or elsewhere. We believe that our former slave masters are obligated to provide such land and that the area must be fertile and minerally rich. We believe that our former slave masters are obligated to maintain and supply our needs in this separate territory for the next 20 to 25 years until we are able to produce and supply our own needs. Since we cannot get along with them in peace and equality after giving them 400 years of our sweat and blood and receiving in return some of the worst treatment human beings have ever experienced, we believe our contribution to this land and the suffering forced upon us by white America justifies our demand for complete separation in a state or territory of our own. Again, that's point number 4 under the Muslim program, what the Muslims want. So it's very clear what we want. Dr. Ava Muhammad, the national spokesperson for the Nation of Islam and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, took that piece right there and dedicated her life, if you will, to putting into place first the mindset to get us there. A lot of us don't want, we not looking for to do for self, do have our own. We're trying to find a way to coexist in this wicked society. And every day, Dr. Mwata, they're showing us that is not going to happen. No matter how docile we become, no matter how complacent we become, no matter how compliant we are, there's always stories of us being assassinated, murdered by the wicked hands of our open enemy. So why not give us a territory separation, a territory of our own? We have everything we need among us. And a lot of these corporations, a lot of these government entities, we are in positions where we're running things. So it's not like we can't do it. We can do it, but now we have to have a concerted effort. So what Dr. Ava Muhammad talked about for so many years, you and I begin to see vestiges of this, the seeds, if you will, of the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad carried out by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and one of his chief helpers talk about this. So here in Georgia, y'all heard the story about the group of 97 families that came to 19 families, I believe. 19 families came together and purchased 97 acres of land in middle Georgia because they want to build a town of their own. In Mississippi, there's a group of people, black people, that have come together, pooling their resources, as taught to us by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and pooling their resources and buying 100 acres here, 150 acres over there, 50 acres over here. In Texas, the same thing is going on with several pockets of of people. Not everybody is a Muslim. So don't think it's just a Muslim situation. It is black people in America, regardless of your philosophical and or religious ideology, as our brother Malcolm X said, they don't care about the open enemy. Don't care about what your religion is. He's not gonna stop you and say, "Are you a Muslim? Oh, I'm not gonna shoot you. Are you a Christian? I'm not gonna shoot you. Are you a Hebrew? I'm not gonna shoot you." You know, they see us first, shoot, and then justify it afterwards. So why not separate? Why not have a territory, a land of our own, and do for ourselves and begin to um to really love each other? That's how you express the love is once we do that. You know, I heard Dr. Ava Muhammad say something, and I was baffled at first because I thought she said it backwards, but it was actually the right way to say it. She said one time in a lecture, we love I mean, make sure I get it right. We serve that which we love that which we serve. Because I thought it should have been the other way around when I first heard it. We love that which we serve. So when we serve a people or serve somebody, we begin to show the love. So you don't have to have the love first. The love begins to come once we begin to serve them. So those are some of the impacts that our star of God has on people. And now that she has ascended to the ancestral realm, these things are coming out even more. You know, as you well know in your studies, Doc, and what you teach, it's when that period is put on a person's life, that's actually when that work that we did here begins to manifest itself. I don't know all the implications of that, why that is, but that is definitely a law of the universe. So we're seeing that, and when you read this latest issue of the Final Call newspaper, you will see the plethora of people across all walks of life who we're still in mourning. You know, it happened so suddenly. I remember when I got the call, then I'm like, no, I'm thinking, no, this is no, somebody's playing a joke. You know what I'm saying? That can't be. But it was finally confirmed, and you know, we're in the mourning period. But in that mourning, we're also thankful to Almighty God Allah for allowing such a beautiful spirit to come among us and to share. And now the onus is on you and I to take that value that we saw, that she taught us, that she said, that one jewel that she dropped on us through her books, a plethora of books. I lost count of the number of books.
Mm-hmm.
But look at one of the major ones, one of the most popular ones is a book called Real Love. All of us, it's about relationships. So all of us who listen to her have a copy of that book, Real Love, so that our personal relationships, our courtships, our marriages, you know, with that love, with that person that we want to spend the rest of our lives with, to build with, we read that book to help give us a foundation to build on to make that successful.
That's right. So we love that which we serve, powerful. The
Yes,
idea of separation, that is an act of love right there. When you talk about loving yourself enough to be able to distinguish yourself from your open enemy. And that's the other part of the conversations that has a population identified as open enemy, right? And so when somebody continues to bring hell up on your life, to gerrymander and to wreak havoc on lynching and castration of folks,
gerrymandering, land, what was it, gerrymandering, redlining,
redlining.
just a flat out. There's an article in this issue of the Final Call newspaper with Dr. Ava on the cover about a young brother in Ohio, I believe, that was 20 years old, murdered by the police. He's sleeping in his bed. They are serving an arrest warrant for failure to appear. He's in his bed sleeping, and this video footage showed they walk in the door and start shooting. They walk in. The man is. So I mean, how much more of this we gonna take?
Exactly right. Right.
That's one of the things I love about Dr. Ava, her passion. You know, as you said, one of the crush, if you will, very attractive, very appealing. And her passion though is what endeared all of us.
Yes.
Seeking and talking about the injustices and righting the wrong. And then she was unmatched in that. So you see this little lady that starts out smiling and loving, then the next thing you know, she's pulling the sword out. The sword of the words of the Holy Quran, the swords of the words of the Bible, the sword of the words of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, the sword of the words of the honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and just chop the enemy down. So the passion came with the knowledge, the wisdom, and the understanding for all of us to do better, to change our condition.
The power, right? The power to do better, the act of self-love to say that I will separate myself from that which is destroying me. And she affirmed that. I mean, that, like you said, that was the attraction. Like, wow, this is I see the physical, but when she starts to speak, that you said endearing, it holds, it captivates to say, wait a minute, we must do for ourselves. She mentioned several times over this idea of women are not the rib of man, but the essence and or seed of God, or from the mind of God. So I mean, that's powerful. That's a big shift, right? Because this Eurocentric, hegemonic, theological process suggests that woman came from man, and she emphasized that it is clear that when we are created, and we understand this, inside the womb, we come from the same source.
Same source, yeah.
Not the issue of woman coming from some other space. And she even talks about women have XX and men have XY. The idea that a woman is a double dose of the truth. And so. So I mean, I always found that to be powerful. You mentioned the idea of the sword, right? Coming with the sword of the truth, of self-knowledge. And I think it's powerful when we talk about do for self. That's where you get to the idea of love, right? Until you've gotten to the position and the point in your life to be able to love that which you can see in the mirror every single day, you don't know what you're fighting for, right? Yes. And that's what she reminded us of, right? The idea of loving ourselves. And she was telling the women to love your divine self, not to see yourself as some kind of diminution of someone else, but to see yourself as an expression of the divine. And in that expression, that's where you find your elevation. Go ahead.
Yes, brother, you touched on so many excellent points, and what you made me think of, and which is one of the greatest contributions that I think Dr. Ava Muhammad contributed to us, is at one point in her one position that she held early on in the Nation of Islam, is that she was the administrative assistant to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So in that position, she was able to extract from the minister the ideas that he had in his mind to help us to elevate. Back to your point of elevation, she transcribed those conversations that she would have with the minister, or the ministers going through talks at certain points. And so she's transcribing those. And what they turned out to be is a study guides that we started getting, I think it was in 1986. We started getting these study guides. The study guides are called Self-Improvement, the Basis for Community Development. Self-improvement, the basis for community development. So right now we're at 21 study guides. We're up to 21 study guides that have been released over the years since 1986. So all over the world on Friday evenings, 7:30, 8:30, depending on where you are in your respective city, 7:30, starting between 7:30 and 8 o'clock, all over the world on Friday nights, there are groups of people that get together and parse the words and the assignments that are given in those study guides. And we get together in a circle. We sit in a circle so everybody's energy can feed off of the other person. You know, with you being a teacher, Doc, I I found this out years ago. I understood the dynamic of sitting behind a person in class rather than sitting in a circle. You're sitting behind somebody, you got to look at the back of their head. They're talking, you may not hear what they're saying, or you don't see the expression. So, with me being a
Mm,
communication skills
mm,
person, I understand that dynamic of what we see.
mm-hmm.
So, by sitting in a circle, I'm seeing you. I'm not just hearing what you say, I'm seeing how you say it. So all of that whole picture comes together, and I can ascertain the sincerity of what is coming out of that person, not just the words that are coming out. So she was responsible for transcribing those words and putting them in a study guide. So not only do we read the words to help make us better, but we're given an assignment or two at the end of that study guide that we are to go out and do, and then come back and report what it is. What did we learn from doing that particular assignment? And what is bringing out of us, it is helping me learn about Jahi. You know what I'm saying? And so when I learn more about how Jahi operates, what Jahi's fears are, what Jahi's strengths are, what Jahi needs to work on. Now, so when I'm interacting with you, when I'm interacting with others, I'm aware of these things, and now I can best I can make the better moves. Let me put it like that. By So that's a contribution that she made in July, on July the 22nd. Uh, Dr. Ava Muhammad announced that the study guide number 22 will be coming out. She announced that on July 22nd. The study guide number 22 will be coming out very soon. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan spoke to the believers of the Nation of Islam on Wednesday night, and he showed the copy of study, or the proposed copy of study guide number 22, and he read a letter that Dr. Ava Muhammad had written to accompany that study guide for his approval and for his review, and to make the changes necessary and all that good stuff. But only Dr. Ava and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan have seen that study guide. And man, that broke all of us up right there. Like, oh my!
Yes,
But this
sir.
is contribution that our sister made. And to that note too, we've been talking about Dr. Ava, the impact. So another impact, if you will, is the plethora of young black women that have been told, in particular with Islam, or you got to stay five. I don't know where this came from, because since I've been a registered member of the Nation of Islam since 1993. I've never seen this walk 10 steps behind the man, and all of these other things. Like, where did they come from? I'm saying that rhetorically because I know where it comes from. It's the propaganda machine, so that we don't connect to something that will give us strength to do better for ourselves, do better for our families, do better for our community, and eventually do better for our nation. So she has inspired a whole generation of black women in particular, but across the board, because that appeal is definitely broad, but coming first to ourselves. So there's tons of black women there. So we have tons of young sisters modeling after Dr. Ava, have gone to law school, getting their law degrees, and are practicing law, are practicing, architects, heart surgeons, psychiatrists. I mean, engineers to the highest platitude, because of hearing and seeing what sisters like Dr. Ava Muhammad are doing, were able to do and what they were given in the time period. Dr. Ava, when she made her transition, was 71 years old. So think about the time period which she came through and the obstacles that she overcame. We have a little bit more access now. So those young sisters are taking, and brothers are taking part of taking advantage of that access.
So you just got me with that, right? So I was when you said that she transcribed the
Yes, sir.
communication, the messages
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
and put them into the form of the study guide that I sat in study sessions on
Yes,
Friday
sir. Yes,
evenings
sir.
participating
Yes,
in. That
yes,
was
sir.
done by Sister Ava Muhammad.
That
That
was
sparked
done by Sister
all kind
Ava.
of discussions that when I left those sessions after reading that, the empowerment, the what I
Yes, sir.
felt, again, elevation. I had no idea. Now that part I did not know that
Yes,
that was
sir.
her voice.
Yes,
Brothers
sir.
and sisters, we
Yes,
need to understand the power of our angels, of those that come among us, those that walk among us, that give us the message to stand and do for ourselves. He spoke in these and speaks in these various study guides about self-improvement, about
mhm.
doing better, being better, and it comes from transforming your mind to think differently about who
Yes,
you are. I mean, that what every time I left, this is a personal experience that
yes,
when I
sir.
would go into the sessions and we would listen and then have discussions about what was there and talk about the true truth, right? The idea of what really is there. There's the truth, and then there's the true truth. You have to understand the difference between the two.
Yes,
That work of Dr. Ava Muhammad is phenomenal. She's written, it said, several books. She was deeply inspired by God. We talk about the Bible, and the Bible actually simply means a book of the Son. That's actually what it means. Holios means son, Biblios means book. So we and people say that it is inspired by God. We can suggest that if we are plugged in, if we are connected, then whatever we write, whatever we speak about is inspired, is the authoritative utterance of God. And I will submit here that
yes, sir.
reading the self-improvement guide, reading that and being in those spaces is indeed a God moment, because it allows us to tap into the divine that is within, to be able to get up and do for self
That's
and
right.
not to continue to ask and beg someone to do
Right, right.
for us. And then you talk about the idea of sacred womanhood. And we
Mhm.
learn that Muslims have women to walk 10 paces behind. We learn that the Muslims oppress women, that women are second there. And there are places there where this
Right.
happens. But she says that whenever you see that, it is not a function of Islam, but it's a
Okay.
function of the culture, right?
That's right.
And be
That's
clear
right.
about that. And then you must analyze your own culture and what
Yes,
have
sir.
you learned about oppression of a people. And anytime we sidestep here just for a moment, anytime you use the oppressor's language to describe the highest order of your relationships with one another, then
Mhm.
you are engaged in oppression. Don't talk about
Wow.
uh,
Wow.
the nation of Islam, the Muslims, and oppression. But if you use the N word to describe your brother and sister, and that was a term that was utilized to dehumanize African
Right.
people, then you
Right.
are engaging in oppression. If you call the man in your life your N, if you call the woman in your life a B, a female dog, a bitch, you are engaged in oppression. Do not have this discussion about others, because if you have not done your work, if you've not done your homework, if you've not studied, you don't know. And I want to go back and say this sister is one who studied deeply to understand how to be able to be a vessel of God and how to transmit that content so that we could all be elevated.
Yes,
This is
sir.
this is why we stop and we give honor. We often pass over and gloss over people because we don't know anything about them or who are they. We love the sensationalists, right? We love those that come out and they have all the flash, the dash, that speak only to talk about this cosmic Santa Claus concept of a God, but one that calls us to stand up for ourselves. That's the one that we actually run from, right?
Yes, sir.
But we love
That's
to talk about a God to do it, God to fix it, God. But when it says get up and fix it yourself, God has given you the power to do it yourself. Stop seeing yourself as being a secondary citizen, but see yourself as being a divine inspiration of God. That's the one that we run from, because now we have to be accountable.
now you're accountable. Now you are responsible. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. But once we get over that part, once we come to terms with that, then we began to, as the word you used earlier, we began to elevate. One last point I want to mention too that is a lot of people may not know, and as I'm saying this, I'm using this analogy. Minister Ava, you could call her, who was the brother in the scripture, David. Well, it was David that fought Goliath, right? So 1996, I believe it was, and those are late 90s. Uh, Dr. Ava Muhammad led uh, council, a legal council group in the Nation of Islam, and they sued. What's the name of his? Well, they sued Rupert Murdoch and his organization. Though those that may not be familiar, I don't know how, but Rupert Murdoch is one of the richest men on the planet. Rupert Murdoch owns most of the news vessels that we all plug into to get our information. That's Rupert Murdoch. The New York Post was the newspaper, and they said something disparaging about the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Dr. Ava Muhammad, being the chief defender of the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, said, "Oh no, we not having this." So she led that legal team that sued the New York Post, Rupert Murdoch, and his why am I drawing like News Corps? That's the name of his organization, News Corps organization, and they won. quiet as it's kept. The verdict, I know the initial price, what they were suing for was $4.4 billion. $4.4 billion. And that number represented the number of original people on the planet Earth that comes in our lessons from Master Fard Muhammad. So it was very symbolic. And of course, the devil, in this case, not the devil, we're talking Satan. Satan being Satan, that information did not get out, nor did they write the check. However, the case was a legal precedent. And you got to not give them credit, but acknowledge they suppressed that information. But this goes to show you that with the backing of God, and you and I come from that essence directly. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that we are direct descendants. We don't have to have any, we're not intermediaries, not a third cousin that married into. We are direct descendants of the Creator. So again, that mindset, once we understand that, understand our responsibility, then that Goliath Goliath wasn't so big. From my slave or enslaved mind, Goliath looked like he was about 8 feet tall, 415 pounds. I can't get to him. Now with my God mindset, oh man, Goliath about 4'4", 120 pounds, and it's shown to us in the scriptures when Jesus put the spittle on the people, on the guy's eyes. At first he asked them, what they look. Oh, they're giants. They look like trees. Put the spittle on their eyes. Now how do you see them? Oh, they're just regular men. We can handle that. So again, that's one of the plethora, uncountable aspects or contributions that our dear sister has made, and in that sparking so many others to go into, as you like to teach, into their truths and find the true truth. And we manifest that within ourselves first, and then we begin to have an impact on our family, our community, and our nation.
Those narratives are powerful, and to be able to take on the wealthiest man, right, who shapes the way we think through
Opinions, yes,
through
yes,
misinformation.
yes, yes.
Information, in means within, form, shape, ation, the
Come
process
on
of
now.
shaping somebody internally. And that when
Hmm.
you have misinformation, you have a dysfunctional, and a dysfunctioning individual. So to take on that entity, to say we must recognize this, and then to win that lawsuit means that something is powerful within you. And Sister Ava Muhammad, Dr. Ava Muhammad, was leading that charge, that situation, that lawsuit. It speaks to the power of the divine
That's
within. And
right.
you said
That's
that
right.
you're very clear when you talked about even David and Goliath, and the narrative is initially they were trying to put on the armor of some other men so that he can go fight Goliath, and it's like that's not my uniform. That's not my uniform at all. As a matter of fact, you mentioned earlier about the full armor of God, and how Sister Ava Muhammad, Dr. Muhammad, moved with the sword of truth, or the
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
the sword of the Spirit of God, right? And so she went into that courtroom, right, with
That's
that
right.
truth, the Spirit of God. And I can't put on this armor because I already have my divinely ordained armor that I have to put on. And so when she talks about standing up and standing in your truth and being elevated, that's putting on your own uniform, your own garment to go in
That's
and do
right.
battle. And when you put that on, you will be victorious every time. And then you talked about the issue of the utterance, right? We talk about when you speak a spoken word, you spitting, right? So the idea of the spittle is not simply just simple, not substance that's coming from your mouth as
Uh,
spit, but actually verbiage, right? And so when you start getting
right.
information and
Mhm.
you're getting part of it, you still are not clear. And so you get in part of it, that you still see them as your enemy. But when you understand the divine within, and that's Dr. Ava Muhammad. When you understand the divine within, you see that this ain't nothing but the regular old whatever it is. Let's go do battle. Let's go be victorious. Let's stop seeing
Yes, sir.
ourselves as less
Yes,
than,
sir.
as being
Yes,
inferior.
Leslie. Right. That's
Let
the whole program of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Dr. Mwata, is we are not what they say we are. So that's our battle, is to let you know that you and I are not what they say we are. We are not degenerates. We are not outcasts from God. We were not cursed. We are not ignorant. We were not swinging in trees when they found us. What all those images that they gave us that we bought, unfortunately bought into, because in all the propaganda machine, way it works, the more they say it, the more they say it, the more they say it, it begins to break down the cognitive fiber of those that are listening, that are ingesting it, whether they're hearing it, seeing it, smelling it, tasting it, however it's given to them, it begins to break that down and we buy into it. They began to call that in the later years, what's the what they call it, the Stockholm syndrome, right? You take on the characteristics of your enemy. Now lately they call it the Patty Hearst syndrome. But that's our job, is to show you, to let you know that you are not that. You are actually a direct descendant from God. And once you have that knowledge, wisdom, and understanding in your head, and accept that and know that, then our lives begin to change for the better. Now I know this. Now I connect with you. You know this. Now we connect with others, like our circle. The circle that we have are those that have come into that consciousness, and now we're able to make better decisions for ourselves and for our family, to lead a more righteous, less stress filled life.
I was about to ask you to do a final closing word, right? What would you say that closes out? I think you just said it, but I want to I want to at least make these statement. Is there anything that you want to say that you did not say, that we did not address? Um,
I'll close it out like that. Thank you again. Thank you for the invite. Thank you for allowing doing this forum and allowing me, rank and file soldier, to express my love for our sister, for my nation, for our minister. I'll close out how I usually start, Dr. Mawada. Most of my all of my presentations for the last 25 years, I open up with a poem, and the poem expresses what we've talked about here today. It's called "Changing the World." When I was a young man, I wanted to change the world. I found it difficult to change the world, so I tried to change the nation. I found it extremely difficult to change the nation, so I began to try to change the town. couldn't change the town. So as an older man, I began to focus on my family. Now, as an old man, I realize the only thing I can change is myself. Suddenly, I realized that long ago, had I changed myself, I could have made an impact on my family. My family and I could have impacted the town could have impacted the nation, and I indeed could have changed the world.
There it is. The brother said, if you change yourself,
So,
you can change the
self
world.
improvement,
Self
the base
improvement.
for community development.
And that is the message here. You said that we need to tune in to get the final call, the latest final call with Sister Dr. Ava Muhammad on the cover. It
Yes,
speaks
sir.
to who she was as a woman. Get that, read that, study that, but more importantly, live the lessons, right? And you also
Right.
told us to get digital.finalcall.com. Is that correct?
Yes, that's it. Yes, sir.
To go there, to check in there. How do we check in with you? How do we keep up with you? What's going on there?
Oh, you can. I'm like Professor Griff, my brother, Professor Griff. I don't mind giving my phone number out. Anyone like to contact me directly, you can call me at 404-438-3156. 404-438-3156. Social media contacts that I check the most is LinkedIn. I'm Jahi, Mr. Communicator Muhammad on LinkedIn and also on Facebook. Those are the two social media platforms that I use the most. So
Hmm.
I either one of those contacts. If you're in the Atlanta area, I'm all over the city of Atlanta, metropolitan Atlanta area. So we can connect, go to one of our favorite coffee shops and get some coffee and tea. So
Mr. Communicator. That's him, Brother Jahi Muhammad. We have been honored to have Brother Jahi to be a part of the Pan African Leadership Center. The function of this particular center is to highlight leadership that is global, that is making changes in the world, that is making a difference, that is affirming our Africanity, that is Pan African, because it suggests that we are not simply a person of African descent in the US or in the Caribbean or in the UK, but we are global. We've been dispersed in part by our own doing and in part from the oppressor that sought to move us from one space to another for their own benefit. In this process, we've had a lack of learning of ourselves, and so we've learned that we are somehow inferior. Dr. Ava Muhammad and the communicator, Mr. Communicator Jahid Muhammad today have shared with us that we are indeed uh, from the essence of the Creator, that we are not a diminution of anyone else, that we are sacredly divine. That is the message from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that we are sons and daughters of the Creator, that we do not need the mediator. We do not have to have a mediator, that we are the ones that we are looking for. And so we want to give honor today to our dear sister who took a stand, who stood up against several forces within this country and the world, who became a leader of a mosque, who became a leader of righteousness for our people, who continues to speak to us to be a leader in the change in our lives today. We recognize that we are not second class citizens, that we are divinely inspired in the image and likeness of the Creator. And Jahid Muhammad says that the person that you change first is to change yourself. And when you change yourself, you change the world. We want to thank everyone for tuning in and being a part of the Pan African Leadership Center. Thank you, Daniel Magunu, for allowing this platform to be established. Thank those that are part of Speak Black to Me and the Global Pan African Network. We're here doing the work. And we say thank you. We say Asante Sana. And we say Kwaheri. We will talk to you real soon. Assalamu alaikum.